Hey y'all, hey, it's JJ Conway. Welcome to Building Wealth Together, where our goal is to help you walk in abundance and leave a legacy. It's Mindset Monday, where we take the best teachings on mindset, motivation, and leadership and apply them to your life. This helps you get past the past and grow forward into abundance. Let's get into it.
Hey everybody, it's JJ Conway. I want to welcome you to Lesson 4 of Countdown to Your Best Year Ever. We're covering time-tested success strategies that I have learned either through hard knocks or from studying the success of the godly wealthy. This lesson will also be broadcast for Mindset Monday. So if you're hearing my voice on the Building Wealth Together podcast, I encourage you to head on over to buildingwealthtogether.com and register for the actual course, Countdown to Your Best Year Ever. Today's success strategy is this idea of the best idea wins. Now, this idea is hard to argue against, right? I mean, I can't think, or I don't think I've ever met a business leader or political leader or any kind of leader that can argue against that point. The best idea wins. But come on. How many of those who profess to have an open door policy? I mean, come on. Everybody has a seat at the table. We welcome all ideas. I want everyone to feel that they can share their ideas at any time. I have an open door policy. These are all great empowering statements, right? But many of them are hollow because they lack a system or a process for people to actually share those ideas. I mean, I can remember when I was active duty, literally there was a suggestion box in every office. And even today, almost every company has a suggestion box. And that's pretty ineffective, but at least it's some semblance of a process, you know? But it's really hard for someone to say, we believe and welcome all ideas. But then they don't even have a system or a process for people to actually contribute those ideas. If I've got a seat at the table, well, where's the table? And where's the chair? So especially in today's world where we see leaders, they're making video after video to try and stay connected with their people. And they think that they're doing these videos where they're talking with their people and they think they're so awakened and aware and they call themselves woke. But then they don't realize they're not talking with their people. They're talking at best to them and at worst at them. So everybody's a square and the leaders are the big center square and they just pontificate and they think, okay, now I've communicated with my team today and I've opened up all these ideas and we're going to talk and we're going to come up with ideas. But let me tell you one of the biggest mistakes they make. They shout out the idea first. You see, the person at the top can say, this is the culture, these are the values. But if it's not lived all the way down through the management, through the people and organization, it doesn't work. There's not a system for us to express through. It's just them saying it. One of my mentors, Paul Martinelli, had a cleaning business and held failure meetings. That's a brilliant strategy, y'all. And the idea behind this was that he had probably 15 or 20 crew leaders, each who had 6 or 7 people, and each crew then would go out and be responsible for $250,000 worth of business. They would go out and clean the buildings, and they might have 30 or 40 buildings at night, or 1 or 2 really big complexes that they would clean, or a hospital or something like that. And they were empowered to come back and sit at the table and share what they had failed in. Oh, and they had better have come with a failure. He told me the worst thing you could do at a failure meeting was show up and have not failed. You better have failed. If you didn't fail this month, he was going to have a problem with you because you're not trying anything new. And there's all kinds of new things to try. There's new vacuum cleaners, new cleaning chemicals, new processes, new procedures. There's a new way to drive your route. What did you try and fail at? And then what did you learn? What ideas can you bring to the table? Because failure really is research and development. And when you look at it like that, you don't look at it as how much did you fail. You look at it as how much am I spending on research and development? Oh, nothing? No failures? Nope, I've learned nothing either. So you tried nothing new, and that means there's no new idea you can contribute. No new idea, right? So what I learned from Paul is that he really made welcome this idea of not only having a system where people could bring new ideas, but where they felt safe to fail in those ideas. He created a safe space where they felt failure was a welcome thing. It wasn't something where you were afraid to fail. If you fail doing the same thing 3 or 4 times, well, there's no learning there, so I guess that's different. But you can't say you welcome ideas and then you don't have a track for the principle to run on or for that principle to be expressed. It's hollow. And so it really starts with an attitude. We're talking about the attitude shift between seeing people as a resource versus an asset. See, resources are something that are disposable. We throw them away. We use a resource and we throw it away. An asset, now if we see our people as assets, not resources, wait a minute. Maybe instead of human resources, we should have human assets departments. There might be too much to say there. So let's talk about assets. Anybody who's followed me in my financial planning practice, you know that assets are things that appreciate. There's a value to an asset. And so if the attitude is that people in the company are not a resource, but they are assets, it's a different attitude. It's a different approach. It's a different energy. So the same here is true. There's a huge difference in the attitude and culture and decision making between a company that says, oh, we want ideas from everybody, no matter what level you're in, versus an attitude or a culture of decision making process that says, all ideas are necessary. We need your drive. We will never be the best at who we can be without your contribution of ideas. The more ideas you have, the better your best ideas will be. It is as simple as that. So we welcome ideas versus we need ideas is a huge difference. It's a huge difference, certainly to the person that has the idea, right? I had to learn to be systematic about polling my teams and having failure meetings, or at the very least, starting my masterminds with 30-second wins, 30-second learns, where people know they're expected to have learned from something they failed at that week. And it's important to have a culture where it's okay to bring those failures to the meeting. It's okay to bring those ideas, and it's okay to challenge. And we push back. And we have this process of yes. And, sometimes when someone who's at a lower level or someone who's not the leader brings in an idea, it's still yes. Yes if. How can we get to yes? How can we all up-level the idea? Everybody gets to truly up-level the idea. The number one reason people don't bring forward ideas is because the person at the top is sucking all the oxygen. In other words, when the talking head in the big Zoom meeting shares their idea first, and then they say, well, here's my idea on how we can increase sales. Here's my idea of how we can improve operations. Here's my idea to solve logistics of the supply chain. Whatever it is, here's my idea. Now, what's your idea? Well, come on. Very few people want to follow that, right? What are you going to get? Well, boss, I like your idea. Sounds good. There's a phrase to help with that. I don't want to be right. I want to get it right. I'm not attached to me being right. I'm attached to what do we got to do to get it right. So we focus all our energy on getting it right, not on being right. Because if you welcome and you value the input of every single idea, and you operate from the principle that we desperately need your ideas, then you walk away with, guess what? Ideas. And so one of the failures in this principle of best idea wins is oftentimes you start with one idea, and it's typically the leader's idea, comes in first, dominates the meeting, throws up their idea, and then you don't have the best ideas win. Because I don't think you can get to the best idea. You get to just a different shape of the original idea. And the only way that's fine is if that idea is challenged and pushed back on. But there really could be a better idea out there. There could be a whole nother way of doing it. So this principle of the best idea wins, again, is one of those that I think everybody can buy into. But what kills this is application. And really at the heart of that is ego. The ego of a leader every single time. The leader wants to be right. The leader wants to come in, push their agenda. Robert Half said an ego trip is a journey to nowhere. So this lesson is really about getting the ego out of the way. And you probably didn't think that's what this was going to lead to, right? You probably thought, oh, okay, today's lesson is best idea wins. It's got to be a lesson on creativity. Got to be a lesson on imagination. Nope. I mean, come on. Creativity and ego are complete opposite ends of the spectrum. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to spend a little bit of time. And for many of you who've been with me for a period of time, you know that I have a teaching on the 7 levels of character, which is really kind of edging out our ego and stepping into our full awareness and presence of the higher side of who we are. So keep that in mind as we keep this idea of best idea wins. You want to have a system and a process for everybody to be able to share. I'm not going to throw my idea in first and pollute the water. I'm going to make welcome all ideas. I'm going to create systems and processes that really do that. And hey, guess what? I might even reward people for bringing ideas. That's what you can do in your failure meetings. Come in with a failure. The bigger the bonus. Because that's the path to better ideas, right? Trying something new. So let's take a little bit of look at what we've got here for the rest of our time together today. This quote by Harry S. Truman is one of those I learned as a freshman at the Air Force Academy. It's amazing what you can accomplish if you do not care who gets the credit. See, if you do care who gets the credit, it's amazing how stuck you get. And then you're determined to try and make that idea work. You really force them, don't you? Remember our 7 levels of character. At the bottom of the level, you have the runaway. And then the next level up is the quitter, then the warrior, then the superiorist. And then just above the line of courage, you've got the planner, the lover, and right at the top is the joyful soul. So we've got these 3 key levels, and the one we're really talking about today is at the line of courage, because that's really what makes the difference between the ego dominating significantly at the bottom, below the line of courage, and then moving up to creativity, spirituality, spiritual energy, creative energy, the highest side of your personality. That's all at the top. So really, the ego is all about the little you. It's the small self. And then right at the top, we've got the real you, the high side of your personality. The top, the highest level is love. And at the bottom, it's all about fear. So to be creative, we want to overcome the fear that goes with the ego that insists on being right. Because that's the block that stops the creative energy from flowing through. And not only does it stop it from you, it stops it from everybody else. Because I've learned a lot through leadership being an Air Force scientist for over 23 years. And one thing I realize that happens for most leaders is they are completely blind, ignorant, and unaware of how afraid people really are of them. I said this all the time. I don't understand how anyone could be intimidated by me. I'm easy to please. I'm approachable. I'm a nice person. And I'm reminded of this one lieutenant colonel everyone hated, our lab director. Nobody liked him. They blamed him for being on meds. You know that kind of guy, right? That kind of boss? And he was giving me a hard time too. He would give me jobs that other people had botched up, and then he would blast me for it in front of the staff. And I was always kind of the cleaner at work. They'd give me the trash jobs and I'd turn them around. I didn't learn until I was a lieutenant colonel that this wasn't because they thought I could do the jobs, but more because they wanted to set me up for fail, or they didn't want to set up somebody they cared about with a failing job. But I am the kind of person, I'm going to do what I set my mind to, and because I'm open to the best idea winning, sometimes that was not my original idea. So I'm really good at that. But after a couple rounds of this, and him blasting me in front of the staff for somebody else's mistakes, I go up to him, and we have a mentoring session, and somehow he became one of my biggest advocates at that assignment. Got me into Squadron Officer School back when it was competitive. So as a leader, there were times where I would have to discipline somebody, and I'd be sitting in my office and saying, well, why didn't you just have to come to me? Why did you let this problem fester? And they're like, oh, I didn't think I could. And I'm like, what do you mean? I have an open door. It's not just enough to say it, y'all. You really have to create it, and you really have to understand that even though you're the leader, and even though you're saying there's no pushback and no punishment, in the follower's mind, it is ingrained in our programming. The person in leadership position has authority. No one tells the boss when he or she is wrong, even if they want it, because there's a reason we have the phrase, don't shoot the messenger. The messenger often gets shot. And I would tell all my subordinates, I want to know if I'm about to touch the third rail. My job is to equip you to do your job, and I will advocate for you to achieve your personal and professional goals. And in return, you give me the information I need to make the best decisions for all of us. Now, if you know me personally, then you know that I really mean that. That is 100% true about me. And I'm a high D personality. As long as you're respectful, I'm not going to be mad at you for telling me I'm wrong. Be respectful, bring data, and if you've got ideas about a way forward, bring those too. That's all I ask. But in a military environment where you're only the boss for 2 or 3 years, it's tough to overcome 50 years of keep your mouth shut programming. And things like failure meetings where you're celebrating people's efforts to try in earnest is what breaks that. It breaks that paradigm. It breaks that paradigm. Now, if you're stuck and your ego is attached to being right, then you've got this idea and you're attached to your idea and there's no room for other people's ideas. But also, if you're attached to your idea, guess what? There's no room for you to have your own other ideas. But also, if you're attached to your idea, there's no room for you to have your own other ideas. So no ideas are going to come. Not from you, not from other people. Attachments are the source of all suffering, no matter who's attached. So we've shown this a lot over the last 12 to 18 months, and I think it's going to be difficult to try and communicate the power of what's in the diagram that we have for you today on the 7 levels of character. So now if you haven't already, if you don't already have this, be sure to go to buildingwealthtogether.com, download the 7 levels of character guide sheet for today. If you're listening to this later, I can post a graphic in the Building Wealth Together Facebook group, so you'll be able to see it there as well. But you want to be able to take a look at this. I'm going to do my best to explain it with words, but you want to take a look at this, okay? All the way down to the bottom level of the runaway, the lowest level, for those of you who have the graphic, you can see it there. There's a combination of ego and spiritual energy on the graphic. And you can see there's a problem. Now we're facing below the line of courage to varying degrees. It's because the ego is all about force. If you think about it, it's all about, I must be right. It needs to be right. It needs to win. It needs to have the best ideas. My ideas are the best. I need to eliminate the competition. And if we're honest, we do this, right? It sounds terrible, but there's a part of us that just wants to destroy anyone that disagrees with what we really believe to be true. This is the response when someone tries to share something with you. And so underneath it all is these 2 basic fears. I'm not enough and I don't have enough. And so on the lower side of ourselves blocks the higher side from shining through. And we've got all this power, which is the real us, right? The inner self, the higher self, however you choose to say it, okay? The spiritual side of your personality. And as you go down, that power is filtered out more and more by the strength of the ego or the negativity that goes with those fears, those illusions of not being enough and not having enough. These illusions stop us from shining through. And so this idea that we can do it ourselves stops us from being open to ideas, either from the higher side of ourselves or from other people. Now hear me for a minute, okay? I'm a very self-sufficient individual. I don't like to be held back by other people's egos, laziness, or inexperience. I just want to get things done, and I do get a lot done. When I have an idea, I just want to roll on, and if you're not on the train, bye. But this isn't that straightforward in your awareness now. In other words, in your awareness, you're not even aware of these things happening, and it just feels natural. And you just say, no, that's not what it is. And a good mentor is like, whoa, 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 stop. Let's look at what you just said. Let's look at your thinking. And when you truly observe it, I always used to say when someone tried to mentor me, I got it, let's move on. Or he or she would say, you don't got it, because if you got it, you'd get it. And honestly, I wasn't getting it. A good mentor will challenge you when you say, I know, by asking you where's the evidence that you know it. Because you don't know and know and know. You heard. And we really have to challenge this thinking, and we have to be reminded of it over and over and over again, which is the benefit of having a community like Building Wealth Together, where we're constantly supporting each other and expanding our awareness. We need other people to help us with this. The instructions to get out of the box, y'all, are on the outside, and you need someone on the outside to say, look right here, you're sitting on it. And as a leader, here's what I learned so many times in my leadership positions, okay? I've learned that people don't feel empowered. And the higher you are and the more power you have and the more responsibility you have, the less likely you are to have people come up and say, hey, look, can I help you? I can see something. You got a blind spot. Nobody wants to be that person. It killed Elvis. It killed Michael Jackson, right? I've even experienced that myself. I had a deputy and a director that were having an affair. I'd learned at a previous base after asking people to keep it out of the office only got me shunned by all the office women, right? How dare you judge her? Well, adultery is against the Uniform Code of Military Justice. You can go to jail for that. And I'm a person of color. People don't like to hear this, but there's many rules. The Air Force released the Pentagon released a report that emphatically shows with data that many rules aren't enforced by some people, but they are enforced on people like me. And sometimes just knowing about something gets you punished with career-ending reprimands for knowing about it but not doing anything about it. But the people who actually did it don't get published. Now, that's not just me being a bitter, salty, angry black woman, all right? That's what the Air Force reports say about the disparity of justice according to race in the Air Force, all right? So when my subordinates came to me and they said that this affair was affecting their ability to do their job and it was affecting their subordinates' ability to trust their leadership, I had to say something because now I couldn't pretend I didn't know. Man, I was in a rock and a hard place, but I had to do the right thing. And guess what? The boss took vengeance on me. And so many times you've done the right thing and the boss took vengeance on you. We've been so scarred by these kinds of events that we really have to be intentional about creating an environment where your team feels like they can give you honest feedback, where your family feels like they can give you honest feedback. And my boys know this. My husband's still learning. He's doing better, y'all. He's a hold it in and stew kind of guy. And I learned a long time ago that wasn't very healthy for me and my psyche, but that's really how most people are, right? But I've found if you don't address it, it can kill your team spirit. You have to give people the opportunity to feel safe expressing how they feel. Otherwise, it kills your potential and your team's potential. It kills the creativity of your team. We must have the willingness to overcome it. And I've been there. I can do it myself. I'm right. I can do it myself. And you know what's so convincing? Is we're convinced we're right. Well, yeah, of course. There, you see, I would accept other people's ideas if their ideas were better. I mean, what's the point in pretending this is the best way of doing it? I know it is. Ooh, child. And that's where you say, well, if your ideas are so great, then you wouldn't mind having a system or a process where people can share their ideas. A process that overcomes some of that negativity. And then eventually what happens is, y'all, you grow a team whose ideas combined really are better than yours. This is the whole foundation of my coaching program. You can only do so much. And I coach people who are in that executive area where they stretch to the max, they've hit their capacity, and I show them how to coach so that they can increase their production by surrounding themselves with quality people who aren't afraid to fail if it ultimately means continual improvement. And for those who have teams that aren't in this idea generating capacity yet, we use coaching strategies. I teach the executives how to use coaching strategies so that they can create this environment. It's a beautiful thing. Now, when you go above the line of courage, you can see there's so much more spiritual. And now on the graphic, for those of you who have it, it's shown in a linear fashion, okay? And we know in real life nothing's really very linear, okay? But it just kind of shows the problem for most of us. For most of us, we got too much ego and not enough spiritual creative energy flowing. Now, if you're really enjoying what you're getting here, I'll tell you what, this actually came out of my program based on the book As a Man Thinketh. So we're going to be covering this training this year in 2021. We're going to start off the year with Self-Image Rising, which I always like to start off the year with because it helps you understand why all those New Year's resolutions typically fail and how you can ensure your own success this year. Then we're going to do As a Man Thinketh, Science of Getting Rich, Think and Grow Rich, many more, right? It's going to be a fantastic year of empowerment. So make sure you're part of the Building Wealth Together group so that you'll be the first to know when we launch those. I think this stuff is so interesting, right? And you may look at it and say, well, I'm this particular religion and this doesn't match with that, or I'm this, I'm that, okay? But I think the basic teachers, all the world's great religions basically say something similar, don't they? It's the overcoming of the small self, overcoming the ego, overcoming our humanness, whatever that means to you. And when that small self of the ego is dissolved, is transcended, then the true self, the inner self, has more ability to shine through because now the blocks are removed. The higher side of our personality radiates into our life. By breaking the outer man, we release the spirit. Now, I'd love to take credit for these ideas, but they're really a combination of Watchman Nee and Thomas Troward. And I really believe that if you have the love of God shed abroad in your heart, nothing new needs to be added to you. You see, we block the ideas of ourselves and others by clinging to whatever idea originally came up because we are desperate to feel like we are enough. And what I'm telling you today is you are enough. If you have the awareness of something, that awareness comes as a complete package. So you also have the potential. You have the resources. You have the talent, the ability, the skill, the time, the money, everything necessary for it. It's all right there. And all it's missing is your awareness of that. And the more you become aware of that, then the more it begins to express itself. So now here's another way of saying the same thing. You're not trying to get something you're not. You're actually letting go of what you're not. You see, the ego is an illusion. And so when we're letting go of that, we're getting rid of the baggage to allow what we really are to shine forth and illuminate our life. And it leads to experiencing more love, which ultimately leads us to being happier and increased well-being. So back to that quote, it's amazing what you can accomplish if you do not care who gets the credit. If we're not insistent on being right or one particular idea winning, we'll take ideas from other people. We can achieve a lot more together in that spirit of cooperation and creativity than we can on our own, trying to force our ideas to work. And what I love about this lesson is we're talking about a timeless success strategy, the strategy that the best idea wins. And it ends up being this really deep, much deeper lesson because you can buy into a principle and say, well, I know. And you can know, and it still never show up in your life. Like you can hold up the greatest book and quote scripture and point to guru after guru about the best idea wins and totally be bought in on the idea and still have strategies and processes within your team to kill it. And you still think your idea is the best and you still think you're doing it all perfectly. The unexamined life is not worth living, y'all. They're called blind spots for a reason. I just want to encourage all of you. I want to say right on to all of you who are in this series and you're doing the things. I'm super proud of you. I'm just asking you to say, you know what? I want to look. I want to at least look. I want to at least challenge my thinking a little bit. I want to make sure that I'm truly awake, that I'm walking this out. That when I say I believe the best idea wins, that I've grown in awareness to be able to really express that in the fullest way. That's all I'm asking. This is every area of your life. It's at home with your children. It's with your loved ones, your wife, your husband, at work, when you go to the grocery store, every area of your life, okay? And hey, let me give you a good idea. This is a great idea, right? January 7th, join me for the launch of the 2021 cohort of Self-Image Rising. You can learn more about that and get registered at buildingwealthtogether.com. All right, that's all I have for you today. Tomorrow I'm going to send out some reflective questions to really help you think about this strategy. And then Wednesday we'll be back live with another time-tested success strategy called You Are the Leader. For those of you listening via the Building Wealth Together podcast, and I encourage you to visit my website, buildingwealthtogether.com, and enroll in this class, Countdown to Your Best Year Ever, so that you can get all of the episodes of the class. It's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the rest of the year, except for Christmas Friday. That lesson's going to be Saturday instead. The class is currently free, and there will be a $99 price tag once we finish. So spread the word and get your friends in on this. That's all I got for you today. I'm JJ Conway. Y'all take care and be blessed.
Love the podcast? Be sure to like, subscribe, and forward to 3 friends. You can ask a question or take a life-changing class at buildingwealthtogether.com. Now, go walk in abundance and leave a legacy.